Welcome to another edition of Lakeville City Council Wrap-Up. During this program, we will highlight the agenda items presented to the Lakeville City Council at their April 6th, 2015 meeting. First highlighted item on the agenda is item number 8, public hearing on the certification of delinquent utility accounts. And to provide the background information on this agenda item is Interim Finance Director Julie Werner.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. Before you tonight should be a revised listing of the delinquent utility counts, which are being proposed to be certified to the Dakota County Auditor to be collected with the 2016 property taxes. In addition to the amount that's delinquent, there's a $35 service fee along with 18% interest. The total amount proposed to be certified is $4,170.46. City staff recommends City Council approval of the resolution certifying unpaid water, sanitary sewer, storm sewer, and streetlights to the Dakota County Auditor. And just as a reminder, this list only includes delinquent utility counts that have had a change in ownership, either by sale of property or an owner-tenant situation. All other delinquent accounts we brought forward in October. Thank you. I'll stand by for questions.
Item number 8 was approved by the Lakeville City Council. Next highlighted item on the agenda is item number 9, public hearing on proposed assessments for improvement project 15-02. And to provide the background information on this agenda item is Operation and Maintenance Engineer Monica Heil.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. Tonight is the assessment hearing for the 2015 street reconstruction project. You'll recall the project is generally bounded by County Road 46 to the north, Cedar Avenue to the east. It includes a part of Griffon Trail between Grinnell and Cedar, and also extends down to the south of Foxborough Park, including the part of the Foxborough neighborhood. As we look back at the project, we first began meeting with residents back in June of 2014 to discuss the project and conduct our first neighborhood meeting. City Council authorized the preparation of a feasibility report last July 21st, and on October 20th, we presented the feasibility report to City Council and set the public hearing meeting for the project. That public hearing meeting was conducted on November 17th, and the project was also ordered. Over the winter months, plans and specifications were prepared, and we opened bids for the project on March 6th of 2015. At the March 16th meeting, we declared the costs based on the bid prices that were received and set the assessment hearing date for this evening, April 6th. We did also hold a second neighborhood meeting with residents back on March 25th to discuss the final assessment amounts and answer any other project-related questions. When we talk about the project and some of the improvements that are proposed, Watermain is one component of the street reconstruction project. Complete water main replacement is proposed throughout the project area based on the break history and also the corrosive nature of the soils. We did some soil boring analysis back in the fall of 2014, tested the soils and found that they were corrosive to ductile iron pipe. We do have testing methods that were made available to agencies back in 1999 that discussed what some of the properties of soils were that contributed to the premature degradation of the iron pipe, and those standards were used in looking at alternatives and solutions to some of the corrosive nature of the soils. Water main replacement would include not only the main lines, but also all the hydrants within the project area and individual property services going up to and including the water shutoff. Street improvements are also proposed as a part of the project. Complete reconstruction will be completed throughout the project area. When we talk about complete street reconstruction, that includes the replacement of not only the existing concrete curb and gutter and the street section, but also some sidewalk replacement in areas that will be disturbed by the water main replacement. And similar to the water main, we have different design standards today than existed a number of years ago when these streets were originally constructed. We know more about the design of streets and what it takes to design a street to last 40 to 50 years, and those standards were employed in putting together the specifications for this project to ensure the longevity of these new roadways. Drainage improvements are proposed as a part of the project. That would include not only storm sewer enhancements to our streets, but also drain tile installation along all streets. Each property owner will have a drain tile service stubbed to their property as a part of their project. Property owners can connect their sump pumps that currently outlet to their side yards or front yards to this underground system that will be connected to the city's storm sewer system. In addition, we are also proposing some traffic calming improvements along Griffon Trail. That portion of Griffon Trail between Grinnell and Cedar Avenue is proposed to be reconstructed as part of the Phase 2 improvements. Right now, it exists as a 46-foot wide street section. We've received a number of comments and concerns from residents along this section of Griffon Trail regarding vehicle speeds. And so as a part of the project, it is proposed to install bump outs similar to what were installed along Flagstaff Avenue with last year's street construction project as a way of mitigating some of the vehicle speed issues along that section of Griffon. And as I alluded to, there is a project phasing plan for this particular project. Due to the size and scope of the improvements, it's not possible to complete all of this work in one construction season. And so we've divided the project into two phases. Phase 1, which you see highlighted in blue in the map, constitutes the work that will be completed in 2015. Phase 2 is work that will not begin until 2016. We did open bids last month. The feasibility report estimate for the project had project costs estimated at $23.42 million. Based on the bids that were received, the final project cost have been determined to be $23.227 million, which is a reduction of about 0.6%. When we originally estimated the project cost with the feasibility report, we had identified all the funding sources that would be contributing to the project costs. At the time of the feasibility report, it was estimated that property taxes would fund about 60% of the project costs in accordance with the city's special assessment policy, and that was estimated at about $9.48 million. Based on the bid results, property taxes will now fund about $9.56 million, which is about a 2.9% reduction from the original estimates. Street and storm sewer assessments had originally been estimated at $6.379 million, and again, based on the bid prices that were received, the final special assessment amount will be $6.365 million, which is a reduction of about 0.2%. The city's water operating fund, which is funded using water utility rates, was originally estimated to contribute about $7.05 million to the project. Based on the bid results and the construction costs received on the project, it's now estimated that about $7.15 million will be funded, which is an increase of about 1.5% from the original estimate. And the sanitary sewer fund, originally estimated about $143,000, based on the bid results, will now contribute about $200,000 to the project costs, which is an increase of about 39% from the original estimate. And that was based on some additional inspections and project costs that led to some additional work there. Overall, the reduction was about 0.6% from the original estimate that was prepared with the feasibility report. The city's assessment policy outlines that street and storm sewer assessments are assessed based on 40% of the total project cost. The remaining 60% is funded using general tax dollars. Assessments are calculated on a per unit basis for properties zoned for single family use. That is to say that regardless of your front footage, if you are on a corner lot or an interior lot, your assessment rate is calculated based on your use and whether or not you're a single family unit. Corner lots are only assessed once, either for the front or the side street, and it's usually determined by the driveway location or the house orientation. So those folks living on corner lots are not assessed any more than anyone living on an interior lot or with someone that has more or less front footage. The assessments were originally estimated with the feasibility report at the $8,116 for a single-family residential unit within the project area. Based on the bid results, there's been a very minor reduction in the original estimate, and the final assessment amounts have been determined to be $8,098. Townhome units, based on the city's assessment policy, are assessed 1/2 of the single-family unit rate. The feasibility report originally estimated townhome units would be assessed $4,058, and based on the bid results, the final assessment amount for townhomes or duplexes within the project area would be $4,049. Special assessments, like construction, will be phased. For those properties living in Phase 1, where construction will take place in 2015, they will see property taxes in 2016 reflect that special assessment amount. For those folks living in Phase 2, or the purple area in the map above, those folks will not see construction start until 2016, and so their assessments would not become due until taxes payable until 2017. Phase 1 assessments will be considered at the public hearing this evening. For those folks that are residing in Phase 1, the assessments can be paid without interest prior to November 13th of 2015. Residents were mailed information about options for both a 20 and a 29-year assessment period and are given 1 month from today's hearing date to make a determination as to whether or not they'd like that 29-year period. Residents living in Phase 2 will also have their assessments considered at tonight's hearing. However, those assessments can be paid without interest until November 15th of 2016, as construction within their area will not commence until 2016. Those residents are also offered options for the 20 and 29-year terms to repay the assessment amounts. For those folks that choose the 20-year or the default assessment term for special assessments, the interest rate is 4% for that 20-year period. Those considering a 29-year assessment period will see an interest rate of 4.5%. The default assessment rate is 20 years based on the city's assessment policy. So we do need to hear from residents by May 6th of 2015, regardless of which phase you live in, if you would like to choose the 29-year assessment term. If you do, we need to have that form that was mailed out to you with this hearing notice submitted to us by May 6th. Otherwise, the default term will be 20 years. I do have copies of those forms here if anyone does need to pick one up. Otherwise, they are also available online. With the special assessment hearing notice, we did include a special assessment amortization schedule. This schedule shows the difference in payments as well as total payment amounts over the term of the assessment. This information is also available online in a special assessment guide. It's about 12 pages that talks about the different options, some of the deferrals, and other dates to keep in mind based on the different phasing areas that residents reside within. The assessments will be certified to Dakota County for taxes payable in 2016 for the Phase 1 improvement areas. So those folks that see construction in 2015 will have their taxes for 2016 reflect these special assessment amounts. Those residents in Phase 2 that will not see construction start until 2016, their assessments will become due with taxes payable in 2017. Senior citizens and residents with disabilities can defer special assessments under certain terms. Those applications must be submitted for both Phase 1 and Phase 2 by September 30th of 2015. Again, information regarding senior citizen deferrals can be found in the special assessment guide, and there's also an application online available for residents to print and then submit to the city. As a part of this project, we did also offer an option for residents to pay their assessment within 30 days of this assessment hearing. Doing so would give them a 2% discount, or about $162 from the assessment, making their final assessment amount $7,936 for a single-family property. This 2% represents the cost incurred by the city to issue debt to finance the project. So in other words, if a resident pays this assessment within 30 days of this hearing, the city does not have to bond for this amount. And so that 2% that we would have otherwise paid for bonding, we just pass those savings directly on to the resident. Again, this has to be paid in full by May 6th of 2015 in order to receive this 2% discount. The special assessment hearing and process follows Minnesota State Statute Chapter 429 for public improvement projects. Written intent to appeal the assessments must be presented in writing and signed by the property owner either prior to this hearing or at the hearing. Additional information regarding the special assessment improvement appeal process was included in the mailed notice that was sent to residents and is also included in the special assessment guide. So looking forward at the project schedule, tonight we are here conducting the assessment hearing. The City Council will open the hearing, close the hearing. However, we would not propose to adopt the assessment roll until a meeting in May after residents have been given the opportunity to select either a 20 or 29-year assessment term, which is, again, why we need to hear back from residents within 30 days about that so we can adopt that assessment roll. Looking to award construction contracts, that's something that our city administrator will talk to in just a minute. But construction will take place for Phase 1 improvements over the construction season in 2015. We would be certifying the assessments for Phase 1 in November of 2015 and certifying assessments for Phase 2 residents in November of 2016 after that construction work has taken place in the Phase 2 project areas. And with that, I would, next steps would be to hold the assessment hearing, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that the council may have.
Item number 8 was approved by the Lakeville City Council. Next highlighted item on the agenda was item number 10, Avonlea. And to give the information on this agenda item is City Consultant Dan Licht with the Planning Company.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. Dan Licht with the Planning Company. I worked with city staff to review the Avonlea project together with the developer, and we'll review quickly our planning report, which incorporates the engineering comments regarding the project. Madam A. Homes is requesting approval of several applications tonight, including a comprehensive plan amendment, zoning map amendment, planned unit development, general stage plan, and also a preliminary plat for the first phase of development. The project includes 470 acres, upside down, located adjacent to Cedar Avenue, south of the central maintenance facility and the park and ride facility, surrounded by future residential development on all sides. The first phase of development, which is being proposed, is located in the northern portion of the project, would include 192 acres and 251 development units. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on March 19th to consider the application and forward a recommendation for approval for your consideration. And looking at the specific elements of the comprehensive plan amendment, they're proposing to include the entire project within the current municipal urban service area, demonstrating that it is feasible to extend gravity sewer and water utilities to serve the entire project, making that an appropriate change to the comprehensive plan that was adopted in 2008. They're also proposing changes to the land use plan, which currently guides the site for a range of uses from low to medium density residential all the way up to higher density residential in the extreme northeast corner of the project. With the proposed development that they've outlined, the overall density falls within the low to medium category of residential land uses, but that's mostly based on the exclusion of 36% of the site as permanent open space, making the development density just over 3 units an acre. One of the concerns that we have in looking at changes to the comprehensive plan is making sure that we're still being consistent with the regional mandates to maintain that 3 units per acre for areas within the MUSA. The analysis that we did as part of this project shows that it has a negligible effect on that overall average, simply because of the amount of land that's being preserved as open space that's then excluded from that calculation. So the changes may remain consistent with that 3 units per acre goal, as well as providing a variety of housing types within the development, also consistent with the city's housing goals. The developer is proposing to implement this project under a planned unit development district, which the city incorporates as part of the zoning ordinance, allowing essentially establishment of a custom zoning district for this project. The current zoning on the site ranges from development that allows single-family uses all the way up to zoning that allows for multiple family uses, consistent with the land use plan that was adopted. The PUD district that would be established would rely on those underlying performance standards within those zoning districts, as well as kind of the incidental requirements that go along regulating such things as accessory buildings, et cetera. But there are certain areas where the developers requested key flexibilities as part of their project, mainly dealing with the lot standards that are incorporated as part of the project. We included in our planning report a comparison of the proposed lot standards that the developer has for the single-family homes in comparison to the RS4 zoning district, which is the most typical single-family development being brought forward currently following the recession in the last decade. They're comparable in terms of those standards. There are some differences, but we also compared these standards brought forward by Madam A to those being implemented in another planned unit development district for comparison purposes. Again, they're compatible and with the intent of preserving open space within the overall development consistent with the intent of the zoning ordinance. Phase 1 does include a number of townhomes that will be constructed directly adjacent to Cedar Avenue, south of the park and ride facility. These have been designed consistent with the requirements of the RM1 district. They are accessed by private driveways off of the public street, intersecting the development, accessing the road, serving the park and ride facility. As outlined in the planning report, we noted there's some issues with the exterior design requirements. Again, city staff and the developer have had meaningful and productive discussions about adjustments to their housing product to meet those requirements. We'll continue to work on those, but we have outlined stipulations as part of our recommendation that we would look for them to meet moving forward. Those may be refined further as part of the final plat application. The second issue Mr. Larrabee addressed with regards to the garage size issue. The information that he provided was considered by the Planning Commission as part of their review. The Planning Commission went back to the original intent of that regulation adopted in 2000, that the garage area was to provide two things. One, space for two vehicles to be parked within the garage. Second, storage for incidentals such as garbage cans that every townhouse unit is going to have. In looking at the information that Mr. Larrabee provided, obviously the units that with the smaller garages are the larger footprint, so they are addressing that storage issue. Secondly, you have the location of this section of the townhouse development in a higher density area of the development, so there may be opportunity for flexibility in that regard. The Planning Commission felt, however, that the underlying intent of the zoning ordinance as it was adopted was appropriate and should be adhered to. With respect to the private drives, they are designed to meet the standards outlined by the zoning ordinance, which are 24 feet wide, serving the individual units. Those would be restricted and posted as no parking zones to comply with fire code regulations. The public streets, which go through the neighborhood in an L-shaped fashion at 28 feet, would be restricted to no parking on one side. So there is some opportunity in addition to the 24 guest parking stalls that are provided within the townhouse area that do in fact comply with the requirements of the RM1 zoning district. We'd also verify as part of their final plat application compliance with the landscaping requirements that are established for townhouse uses, but they are complying with the lot area requirements as well as setbacks with some consideration for flexibility, moving those units slightly closer to the private driveways and also on the side units to accommodate the architectural features that they've incorporated as part of their product design, which add architectural interest and variety to the overall product. If I can back up. The streets within the project follow the comprehensive plan adopted in 2008 for transportation, Cedar Avenue being the primary access point for Phase 1. There was a question raised at the public hearing as to whether access from Cedar Avenue will be adequate for this first phase of development. From an engineering standpoint, it's satisfactory in terms of traffic generation and also the design of the intersection off of Cedar Avenue, which will provide for 3/4 turning movements. That issue was also specifically reviewed by the fire chief and police chief as to adequacy from a public safety standpoint, and they were comfortable with the arrangement as well. In the future, 185th Street will be constructed through the center of the development. Highview will be the west boundary of the project as major collector streets. Minor collector streets include Hamburg Avenue north to south through the project as well. The transportation plan did include a minor collector street going east-west through the neighborhood. However, based on the change in density, lowering the unit type to single family, and also the amount of open space within that, it's not necessary to construct that roadway as a minor collector street within the development. And so as part of the comprehensive plan amendment, that minor collector designation would be removed from the proposed development. There is also a minor collector street that would be added on the east perimeter of the subject site in the future. Within the development itself, they're designing the streets at 32 feet wide where they're intersecting the major roadways and providing through movement through the neighborhoods, where the function of the street is to provide primarily lot access. They're 28 feet wide. The city did allow flexibility also for another planned unit development project in that same regard, with the intent of minimizing the amount of right-of-way within the neighborhoods so that there is more opportunity to preserve open space and still meet that functional purpose of those street accesses. They will be posted as 28-foot wide streets with no parking on one side, consistent with the standards outlined in the PUD district requirements. They are showing some unique elements within the street sections, including center islands within the two cul-de-sacs within Phase 1 and this divided roadway within the maintenance-free single-family area. Those were reviewed by engineering staff and found to be acceptable in terms of turning radius movements for service vehicles as well as emergency vehicles, and will provide additional amenity within those sections of the neighborhood. Lost my park map. Hang on a second. Within the project overall, there are 172 acres of open space, 84 of which would be dedicated to the city in phases as development moves forward. That includes the greenway corridors along the tributary creeks, as well as the 66-acre community park on the south side of 185th Street and adjacent to Cedar Avenue. City staff and the developer have worked out an arrangement that would be memorialized as part of the first phase development agreement as to the dedication of these parcels moving forward through each phase of development. At that point where the required land dedication is passed and the land being dedicated to the city exceeds that amount of acreage, there would be a fixed payment of $50,000 per acre for that going forward as a means of accommodating the acquisition of all the property, including the substantial parcel on the south side for that community park facility. There are also 24,700 feet of trails within the project adjacent to Cedar Avenue and the other major roadways, as well as through the Greenway corridor, as well as 56,000 feet of sidewalks on one side of the local streets within the neighborhoods. The park plan that was developed follows the 2006 Parks, Trails, and Open Space Plan, and this is also what has been used by the Parks, Recreation, and Natural Resources Committee and in discussions with the City Council as the model for how neighborhood park facilities would be developed moving forward, focusing on the linear greenway corridor that provides recreational opportunities, but also provides that linear connection to not only the neighborhood, within the neighborhood, and also regional destinations beyond the neighborhood, including other parts of Lakeville and the metropolitan area. The city engineers reviewed the grading, drainage, and utility plans and found those to be consistent with the requirements outlined in the subdivision ordinance. And again, specific attention was given to the elements of the utility plan to make sure that the entire parcel, not just phase one, is serviceable by gravity sanitary sewering, consistent with the city's utility plans. There are 24 outlots within the proposed development in the phase one area that consist of the open space parcels, the dedication of stormwater basins to the city for perpetual maintenance, and also dedication of outlots for the wetlands for their protection going forward, as well as future phases development and homeowners association parcels as well. Landscaping, I should also touch on, within the development will include boulevard landscaping along all of the local streets. They're showing substantial landscaping along Cedar Avenue, compliant with the city's buffer yard requirements established by the zoning ordinance to protect the single-family homes and townhomes from the traffic volumes on Cedar Avenue now and in the future. Those elements, including those that are installed within the right-of-way center islands, would be maintained by the Homeowners Association going forward. And as Mr. Larrabee indicated, they'll be submitting those documents with their final plat application to establish the Homeowners Association to provide for that maintenance and ownership, as well as the other elements required of that organization for the overall project. Planning Commission did hold the public hearing March 19th. Again, the main discussion points were traffic related to Cedar Avenue. There was also significant discussion about the garage issue, which will likely occur here as well. But the Planning Commission was very supportive of the project overall and felt it was a exciting contribution to the housing supply within Lakeville. City staff concurs with that finding by the Planning Commission. This project is consistent with the city's comprehensive plan goals. It's an excellent example of the use of planned unit development to achieve a better result than would be possible through application of the standard zoning requirements, particularly with emphasis on that preservation of 36% open space within the development. So the Planning Commission and city staff are recommending approval of the application subject to the 14 conditions outlined in the planning report.
Item number 10 was approved by the Lakeville City Council. Well, those were the highlighted items presented to the council at their April 6th, 2015 meeting. If you have any questions or comments regarding these agenda items, please feel free to call City Hall. The number is 952-985-4400. Thanks for watching this edition of Lakeville City Council Wrap-Up.
When you buy local, your money stays local. Did you know funds from Lakeville Liquors were used to acquire the land for the Heritage Library? Liquor proceeds were used to pay off the bond for Fire Station 4, saving taxpayers close to $2 million. They also funded the replacement of the roof, parking lots, and HVAC system at the Art Center. Currently, liquor proceeds are being used for the bond payments of the police station and other equipment used throughout the city. Lakeville Liquors, putting profits back into the community since 1934.